Maharaj Ji de charna de vich dhyan tarde hoye, by placing your attention in Guru Maharaj Ji's lotus feet, please, through that dhyan, offer me blessings that when I do talk, I stay on topic inside of Gurmat. Kirpa karke fateh rahi asisa baksho. Dobare aakho ji, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Guru Pyari Satsang Ji, this is the Guru Nanak Academy program that we hold here every Saturday that begins at 6 o'clock and ends at 9 o'clock. And the first portion of the Gurmat lecture that I wanted to share with you is today's lecture that's based on a presentation that Das did about 2 days ago at the Coors United camp. But seeing here that not everybody attends that camp, I wanted to share also with you. So, and plus, there are some things that Das forgot to mention also within the time limit. There's some things that I had edited out that I wanted to show in its true vastness through this PowerPoint presentation. So, mostly, today's presentation is to understand of Singhani and their role in life. And it also gives an understanding to Singhs on what mentality the community and culture places on people and how it's been coming down and cementing down on people and how Gurmat needs to rise above it within us. There's things, stigmas, certain things that have been coming down on top of us that really hold no truths as what the real role is of a Gurmat Ansar Jiri Aurat Hove, or a woman living in a Gurmat lifestyle. So today's presentation is based on the lecture that was done there. But again, for those that did attend the lecture there, you'll find a lot of other things that were not mentioned that have been included in this PowerPoint presentation. So, Guru Maharaj Ji de Bani de vich 370 ang te ek shabd honda Guru Maharaj Ji da, and ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਪਿੱਛੇ ਉਚਾਰਨ ਕਰੋ, 32 ਸੁਲੱਖਣੀ ਸੱਚ ਸੰਤਤ ਪੂਤ. ਫਿਰ ਉੱਚੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 32 ਹੀ ਸੁਲੱਖਣੀ ਸੱਚ ਸੰਤਤ ਪੂਤ. So 32, 30, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਬਾ ਮੁਰੇ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ, it represents 2, so 32. 32 characteristics that make up. Sulakhni is an adjective, aam karke used in describing women, but what it means is good character. So 32 qualities that make up a good character in a woman living in a Gurmat style. Such santat poot, that such meaning true, santat means bring forth, poot means son, that in this world that they can bring forth a true child. A true child that in a worldly means you can have a baby that will be prapak and sikhi. On a spiritual realm, it means a true child meaning Brahmgyan, enlightenment. So these are 32 qualities that Guru Maharaj Ji's mentioned, which also apply for a bhakti. There's also different meanings that come, but it also serves as a definition for an aurat or singhani or sikhani, right? It serves as a definition for them, and we're going to go through them individually, but I'm not going to dive very deeply into each one of them. I'm going to list the first one, which is the name of this lecture. So the first one is true beauty. And true beauty, what is it? Is a superficial beauty. Now I have to mention a small little story for you. And this story comes from the workplace that I work in. In that workplace, there was a woman that came up to me quite a while ago, and I was working at the cash register at that time. And the woman came. Half her face was paralyzed. She was mentally handicapped. And she came with a jar of cream. And she wanted to pay for it. But before she wanted to pay for it, she asked Das a question. She asked me a question, which was that I want to make sure this cream will make me beautiful. Will this cream make me beautiful? Now in her head has been bombarded what every other person sees here with images on television, with movies, and with magazine covers, with internet. Jo bhi haiga, the same images about a polished face, a decorated face with cosmetics. And now she looks to the cosmetics section for such a cream that will make her beautiful. And I was caught off guard, and all I could end up responding is that you don't need this, you're already beautiful. But as to paint an example, that's superficial beauty. And Guru Maharaj Ji ne aap bhi kya, that's not the one, that's not what I look for. And aap bhi keh dene hunne roop anroop mera kach na bichareo. The roop mera, if it's unroop, meaning that it's ugly to the world, Guru Maharaj Ji hasn't held that against me, while the world might. But Guru Maharaj Ji doesn't hold that against me. Knowing that it is a 5 elemental body, right? 5 elements combined together to make this the gross body. And this body is what people will pretty much judge you throughout this life. But that's again on a superficial level. What true beauty, Guru Maharaj Ji says, say those, say sundar sohane. Those people are truly beautiful. Sad sang jin bahne. Those people that are sitting in sangat. So the first lakhan, or first characteristic or quality, is if that aurat, that sikhani, sits in sangat, or is a sat sangan, right? So the second is modesty, saram rakhana. Third is intellect. And you know, apa kehte ne buddhi. A buddhi or intellect that's been forged by Gurmat. A fourth is stubbornness. And a stubbornness not for anything else but acting righteously. If you know that shubh karmante kabhu na taro, that hatna ni piche when there's a shubh or a good act that could be performed. And panjama is sohirda, changa dil rakhna, being friendly, and kindness showing kindness to others. And not just upperly, andro. So, and 6 is sat rakhna, being truthful. Whether it's your companion, to your parents, to your guru, right? There's a truthfulness, fidelity. And then sat, I've written courage. But the word that actually comes when you look up these 32 qualities, and mind you, when I look these up, I've looked them up through a couple of granths or pothiyan. And some places, people have changed this to suit their own means, and it shows you how even that mentality or what the true role is, has been washed away or cemented down so people don't even know, and they've ended up changing these 32 qualities as well. They started writing, they should know how to sew, they should know how to cook, and these kind of things will start coming. But when Badde Mahapurush, Baba Gurbachan Singh, does this in Katha, these are the ones that are mentioned. So Hirda, we've already mentioned, Satrakhana, and then Sur Birta. This is something that went away. It was in the early yugs, from Satyug to Treta, and then it slowly washed away. And ever since those eras, and mind you, eras are marked by mentality changes of the masses. When the whole mass of the population adorns a certain mentality, a majority of it changes, then you have a switch of an era. Right? These Gursikhs, these people that sit in Sangat, are developing a mentality of Satyug, of a truthful era. But what's happening is those people, ruk ja honi, ye cheez nahi karni Sangat vich. And what has happened is when there's a darkness or an era of darkness, and you can actually see that what people have done and mentalities have changed so far from the truth that you start seeing problems like that, where I even saw variations of these 32 qualities. When Satma is Surbirta is that Maidane Jang de vich, in the battlefield, or there's a fight, right, for righteousness, and you see falsehood standing on the other side. That person doesn't push back, and then that courage wells up inside of him, that it produces an action, and they can go on to the battlefield. And ਇਹ ਔਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸਿਆ, right? We'll see this culminate in a woman during Guru Maharaj's Vela. We'll see through the time of Guru, through all our Guru Sahibs, you'll see this come. And Maharaji produce it back out. Courage, and then such pavitrata rakhni, cleanliness, purity, and that comes with anybody. And these all qualities can apply to everybody. But khas karke Maharaji mentioned it, so I mention it to you. Cleanliness, purity, sucham rakhna kapre di, Guru Maharaji di je seva karni hai. And koshish rakhni, such pavitra rakhni hai, hath dho ke prasada shakna ja prasada banauna. Focused, staying attentive. And the shabd here is savdhan rehna. Right? Savdhan ekagrachit, Sukhmani Sahib de vich likhya. Dasma comes as pandita. Pandita means a person is wise. And that wiseness isn't that you memorize a couple of quotes by certain esteemed figures in society. It comes with knowing your itihas. Knowing that what your basis of your step is, that you've settled it and you've solidified it with the means of Gurbani inside of you. You know the itihas, you know what your gurus have taught you, and you use that in your daily life. Not to demean people that you know more. No, it's a matter of giving knowledge to others. A book that later on I'm going to share with you, that it will amaze you what Guru Maharaji Di Kirpana Das has come out of that book is by reading the appendices. And it's been made a movie, but the appendices have been left out, and I wish that the appendices had been put into the movie so you could understand about a truth, which is going to come near the end of the lecture, just to rise your curiosity. I've mentioned it. The 11th is himmat, an effort that you put forward. And we know this from the Panj Pyare name as representing je dharm kamauna, himmat chahidi hai, yatan karna. So, 12वां हैगा helpfulness, humanitarian, that I've mentioned this before through characteristics of the 3 Gurmukhs that passed away here at the academy, was that, people have a tendency to look down at other people. But Guru Sikhs have a tendency only to look down when another person has fallen, to help them up. And that's a means of dujyan te parupkar karna, being helpfulness, showing a helpful nature. And the 13th is something that I want to point out, is that as virtues are listed, or virtues are said, and virtues are seen, that you have a virtue inside of you to adopt it and instill it inside of you. That itself is a virtue. That you're not the type that things are going past your eyes and you do not choose to adopt it. When you know clearly it's a virtue, as in this case where Guru Maharaji has mentioned it, it's a virtue in itself to adopt those virtues. So, maturity. A maturity that sits with you within life. That loki ke bari hasa makhol karan lag jande hai in sangat. And you know this is Guru Maharaji's Diwan. That maturity not only keeps you in a nature that you respect everything that's being done in the Guru Darbar, but when something disrespectful is happening, you openly stand up and would confront it at that time. Right? It's a maturity that's inside of you that Guru Maharaji wants as one of the qualities. A pure mind. Obviously, a pure mind can be only fully attained when true enlightenment comes. But to that point, it's all about minimizing filth and maximizing that purity that we were talking about in the mind, right? Religious, becoming religious, meaning that you've committed, you've formally vowed yourself to your Guru Sahib. Not saying that I'm a Sikh, I don't need to declare it by taking Amrit. No, you become baptized. That's a virtue in itself. And that commitment coming is a virtue in itself. And then we've said, if we move on to the 17th, which comes as forgiveness, that having a humble heart and having an understanding heart, that we're all prone to making errors, that you forgive another, right? And knowing that aap bar bar banone hain, you countlessly will over and over forgive an individual for making mistakes. If they've realized their mistake and they're coming to you and saying they're sorry, that you forgive them. So self-knowledge, you understand that there's a day, there's a body or a kaya, and a kaya is a 5-elemental body, and that's not who I am. Though it's a vehicle that I've attained in this life according to past actions, that's still not who I am. I am the energy that's being that is charging this body. I'm that Chetan Swarup, Brahm, part of Him. And that's what my goal is, to realize Paramatma, right? And understanding what the mind creates and what kind of obstacles you have to overcome and not succumb to. So the next is self-control. Self-control, understanding that jimme sangat de vich hai. I saw this while I was presenting, was that there would be an individual, mere varga hi manna, I'm not saying that I'm any better, that if a person were to walk through a door or choose to stand up, our eyes in a split second will move to that individual. But then there are some, though their eyes move, they'll put it back to where their focus should be very quickly, not letting themselves, not letting their mind stray or waver. So that is part of self-control. In Sangat, we learn about self-control, moving away from laziness and understanding that there's sensory organs that are going to be compelled by Maya over and over again, but we're here to minimize it and use this self-control and solidify it so we can take it into the world. So that energy that would be devoted to the sensory, a sensory part of us, is now being used towards pushing towards Simran or focusing on Paramatma. 20th is abiding by Rahat Maryada. Rahat Maryada de vich bhi likhya Nitnem, but to especially promote it, Guru Maharaj has also mentioned it as itself a quality as well. Nitnem Rakhana. Then further, we move further, 22nd is patience, Tiraj Rakhana. 23 is humility. Again, this can only come when you minimize ego. Ego is only diminished in the last steps of Brahm Gyan or enlightenment. And 24 is being agile, not lazy. And this comes with a person might sitting in Sangat, they see some Beadbi of Guru Maharaj's Swarup, or somebody is doing some Beadbi, that person not falling into a cycle of thinking, they get up right away and act quickly in an agile manner. But not letting their laziness overcome them and say that there's another person sitting closer, they can tend to that problem, they obviously see it. No, it falls on everybody. And Guru Maharaj Ji wants you to stand up at that time and jaake tusi jo seva karni hai. Jahan jis tarah tunu samjhaya si, within life this can apply in certain scenarios. Being compassionate. The Shabd is Daya. Maharaj is compassionate to you. It's His virtue. Now you instill it in yourself and show it to other mankind. Because in mankind, God's Jyot, light resides. Right? So it becomes of us to show compassion to this world. And having, this is need, you don't need to say this, but it's very important. Maaf karna, that it goes without saying, I meant to say, goes without saying because it's a central part of Sikhi is having love for Paramatma. Content, being content with what Guru Maharaj Ji gives you and not having on the opposite end greed. 28 is having no hatred, not being envious, not being jealous. Right? Gussa nahi kisi ne dikhona, your anger or having hatred towards any other. 29 is called ahimsa, taking the same sloks as what Bhagat Kabir Ji tells us, and saying that do not believe in the killing of animals. That's why a Gursikh strives to look at ingredients to make sure these aren't produced from animals or the butchering of animals. Not being lustful. I'm mentioning to you what I've learned and I'm passing it on to you. Is not being lustful. Again, against the opposite gender, jimito for the mard looking at the aurat or aurat looking at the mard. And the 31st, it's sincerity, meaning that you act from the depths of your Atma out, not with the mind and trying to trick people, being sincere. And 32, being respectful. Being respectful. So, some of these things overlap, but they were mentioned specifically because these 32 qualities are a shingar. It's how you fashion yourself to look beautiful towards Paramatma. And Guru Maharaj has mentioned it for a Bhagat, but specifically for a Aurat. And from a Aurat, in this Shabd, I'll mention the Murla Shabd, or the Murliya Pankti of this Shabd, with these 32 qualities. Sulakhni, a good character, will produce a true child. Sach, Put, Santant will bring forth or produce a true child, which is Brahmgyan. Maharaji looks towards you. It's all these qualities that will enable Maharaji to place a greater glance onto you and give you the gift of enlightenment. Now, I'm going to step into something that I'm just going to try to quickly cover, though this was added in after. Piche parna kalheen, kala sanjogat, akal purkh ades. This is from Jap Sahib, Papa Nityanem de vich padde hain, and the part of this pankti is the middle part of this pankti, kala sanjogat. To understand now, what was asked of Das to present was a history of where and how this mentality changed, and how through each of our gurus, through the times of our gurus, how this mentality was broken, it was put aside, but yet, like a vacuum, people fell into the same tendencies because there's a huge mass population still thinking by it. And if a person didn't stay strong, then again they would falter and fall into the same vacuum, and their minds would be clouded. So, starting from that and understanding from the beginning eras that will start from Satyog, but even before that, a creation of the universe, I want you to understand, there's only Akal Purkh. Sache Paatshah ek hi si, Nirankar Swarup Sache Paatshah. From this one Shabd Bhagat Kabir ji, Avale Allah, Noor Upaya, Kudrat ke sab bande. So, Avale Allah, Noor Upaya. Guru Maharaj ji, Ugradanti de vich kende a taha noor tumra agam roop chhajai. It was your light or your shakti, or what we say as Bhagavati. Remember that Akal Purkh, when he created this world, he created a nizam, or he created a rule that in order to bring forth another into this world, you need to have two. Right? Well, look at our humans, a man and a female, right? Doe ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਕਾਰਜ ਹੁੰਦਾ. So Akal Purkh had used this Shakti when the thought came of becoming many in this world or creating a world, then a Noor, or through Maharaji's Shakti, or a creative power that's been called Mahamaya. Gond Mahalla Panjava de vich shabd aunda Mahamaya. And through this, Guru Maharaj created. And then Maya came about. But looking at the Shakti and then Maya. Okay? Otherwise, if there was no Shakti, it would be known as Jad Maya, lifeless Maya. Just like what we see when our Jyot goes, or our soul goes, and the body's left. That's Jad Maya. It won't move, it won't do anything, it's lifeless. That's what was there, a lifeless Maya in its primordial form, in its beginning form. And what happened when Guru Maharaj's light came? It was Maya sitting in its pure form, which was Satogun, a mode of Satogun. And I've gone over these. I don't want to dive too much deep into this. But then what happened is what Bhai Daya Singh explains to the Sangat of Anandpur Sahib, because this has come from Bhai Daya Singh, from the Panj Pyare. Then he said that Vakar Hoya, or the universe, or what the material creation of what Maya was, is shifted. And that shift produces different modes from Satogun. Still a part of Satogun remained, and then Rajogun and Tamogun. These three came about. But where I draw your attention is when Guru Maharaj created a world with rules, and then the fact that there will be two that create a child. Well, Guru Maharaj fashioned himself as the father, and then a quality of himself, which was his shakti, he called the mother. The mother would come around, and all around us, all around Guru Granth Sahib Ji, all around this world, this motherly shakti is controlling everything. It's not, you wouldn't say that it's a separate entity. It's the same part of Guru Maharaj. What Maharaj took is that shakti and called it that this is your mother. And hence, then we have a shabd that Guru Maharaj says in Sri Sarbalo. And then in 1708, he gives comfort to the Sangat when they ask that, what will we do without you? Well, then main tonu lad la chalya Guru Granth Sahib Ji nu. And on top of that, I'm leaving you in the lap of your mother. And what does that mean? Mat Bhagavati, Pita Kal Purkh, God meaning lap, Leo da khas pali. That your mother, which was the Shakti that we were talking about, which is Mata Sahib Kaur, and your father, Akal Purkh, within their laps, their child, Khas, or Khalsa Mera Roop Hai Khas, referring to the Khalsa, is properly raised. Is properly raised, you don't have to worry. Now you have your mother and your father still here. So, this other stuff that I've written underneath, that when Das has heard in Katha, people describing the beginning shabds of like Ik Oankar, they'll say that this is a shabd that comes in. To this point, it didn't make sense. For almost like, just in the past couple of days, this has come about that I want to explain to you is that this has been taken from the Japji Sahib Tika of Sant Kartar Singh Ji. Sacha Paatshah Maya Sabal Kahaya. And Baba Gurbachan Singh said, Jo Sargun Sroop hai, oho Shakti vi naal rakhda hai. Right? Meaning that Sargun Sroop de vich Paramatma and his Shakti as the mother, father and mother. And then Sacha Paatshah Maya Sabal Kahaya for Ik Oankar. The Paramatma, Maya, Sabal. What does Sabal mean? And Sabal comes over and over in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. When you split the shabd up, you have Bal. And you understand Bal, which means strength, power. And Sa stands for Sahat, meaning with power. That Maya with power. Paramatma, Maya with power. And what is that strength? That's Akal Purkh's Adi Shakti, or creative power, personified as a female wife. And when it incarnates, that power, if Maharaji chooses to produce a form, it produces as Durga, or it will produce as Chandi. And then also, now in Kali Yuga at the time of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, she came as Mata Sahib Kaur. When there's a shabd we read before Ardas, Pratham Bhagavati Simrike, the next shabd is a paudi. Tethon hi bal Ram le, nal bana da sarkaya. Tethon hi bal Krishna, bal dobri onda. Tethon hi bal Ram le, nal bana da sarkaya. Tethon hi bal Krishna le, kans kesi pakad kadaya. Whether it was Brahm or Krishna, they had to use this strength. It wasn't part of them. They had to use the strength of Paramatma in order to carry on a task. Yet people are worshipping them as Paramatma. No. Maharaji makes it clear they had to use the power. But when Durga is mentioned before them, Maharaji mentions no power. Tahin Durga Saj ke, Danta da nas karaya. But after them, it will be mentioning that they used the bal, they used the strength, because Durga herself was strength, personified as a female. And that's why Maharaji's strength didn't need an army. It was Durga herself that would go on, carrying on, defeating enemies. A huge enemy, array of enemy of demons that would multiply when their blood would be spilt on the ground. And that had caused gods and goddesses, that had godly weapons too, to run off. She alone, on top of a lion, would go to face. And they typically depict her. Remember, there's a Gurmat stance we're going to take here, and then there's what traditional thinking in Hinduism. In Hinduism, they'll say that there's a woman with 10 arms. Well, Astapujapa Manya, that she has 8 arms. But again, this story, Guru Maharaj aap jane, if it had been exaggerated, Maharaj honored it in the form that it was to draw inspiration and to create a mentality and awaken a mentality, so we wouldn't be sitting as cowards, but the opposite, we would have courage. So, if you take it as symbolic, you can draw an analogy out of this too. What does Durga mean? Durg. Countless times, if you read Ityas, they'll say that unhone Durga bana liya si. Durg doesn't mean that they made a Durga statue. It means they made a Durga fort, or they made a defensive killa or defensive fort. They made a fort, a strong outside shield, and then Astpuja. If you say that there's 8 arms, 4 pairs, what are these pairs? Guru Maharaj took the 4 caste system and gave each of the qualities in one individual. So 2 would be to worship Paramatma with folded hands, or with a gurka in hand, or to use sajas to do Guru Maharaj's worship. 2 would be for the ability to have Shastra Vidya, for the art of defense, or the art of defending, or for defense, self-defense, and also defending the poor that can't defend themselves. Then 2 other, Kirt Karna, having the capacity that you don't have to look towards any other, you can work for yourself too. And playing an instrumental part in raising a child. 4 is the 4th one, is that seva karni. The dharm di seva karni. Hath pair naal ja ke jodyan di seva karni. Ja ke Guru Maharaj ji de vich, Guru Langar Hall de vich, prashadyan di seva karni. Like I give you an example right now. At the Singh's camp, there were 2, maximum 4 women that got together and they did seva over several days for 70 Singhs. Evi Shakti hai. Guru Maharaj gives this Shakti inside of them, that they can do this act and or perform this righteous act, right? So that's just an example. So I'm going to stop here, but I'll tell you this, that in the beginning ages, this is where the mentality was much more open in its purest form. Purest form, that there is a woman, there is a Sikhini, and this is what they can learn from it, is that they have been produced in the form of Bhakti and Shakti. That's what their form represents. From this, now we're going to flip over the yugs and come to Guru Maharaj's time, over the yugs, over the eras, see how this mentality has dwindled and what's been cemented upon the community as a whole, everywhere. And what are looking to the right or looking to the left, what we see as our brothers in different religions, of what they say, though they might quote it now, because equality is preached amongst man and female, but you can't hide your scriptures. There's a website, I think ishur.com, and it's if you type in I love God, you'll find different scriptures. And Das has gotten a chance to go into their writings. They cannot hide the writings. You'll find it in their writings about how a woman is made subservient, meaning below a man, that she's been created to service a man. When Maharaj was really pushing up this mentality, but we're going to delve into that. 5-minute break. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Vaheguru Sahib Ji Ek Duti Guru Nanak Deva, Oankar Guru Angdaya Peva, Satnam Guru Amar Pyare, Karta Ramdas Guru Vare, Purkh Sri Arjan Sukhdani, Nirpau Har Gobind Gun Khani, Nirvar Guru Hai Sri Har Rai, Akal Murth Har Krishna Te Aaye, Ajuni Tek Bahadur Rai, Sapang Guru Dasmes Sahai, Gur Prasad Granth Gur Gyana, Vaheguru Bandhan Bhagavana. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Just finished mentioning Mata Sahib Kaur. Then I also mentioned in the early ages, from Satyug to Treta, Dwapar's presence, Maaf karna, Durga's presence. and the symbolic nature that you can drive as what should be embodied in a woman from her figure that has been used, that we read in Chandi Devar. So then if you look through eras, you can see again eras being marked by mentality changes. You start to see there's a big difference that's coming about. That there is a woman now failing to realize her Shakti, but still having bhakti or worship still embodied inside of her. She knew enough that she would call out, but yet didn't know exactly who to call out to properly. It was a character that's been mentioned in Nome Pasha's Bani, Guru Arjan Dev Ji's Bani, Sache Pasha Guru Granth Sahib Ji de vich khas karke bahut hi bare naam honda. And again, this is our Gurmat story. Now, these stories parallel what comes in Hinduism, but I don't draw your attention to their stories or their versions of it. I take whatever Guru Maharaj Ji has said and whatever I've heard from people that have done prachar in the textiles, and I'm going to try to produce it in front of you. What happened was at that time, because of a situation that was created through gambling, which was a game called Pachisa, and royal people often played this, that Dropti, who had been wed to 5, and there's a story behind that as well, those 5, after losing all their wealth, which you can see on the side picture there piled up, in front of a character who's their cousin, Duryodhan, who now, in gambling, had won over Dropti. That a mentality comes now that a woman is just an item that she can be thrown onto the gambling table. That you can throw away your relationship with your wife and put her on the gambling table. That's how far it had dropped down. We're moving from Satyug, now Treta, to the age right before Kali Yuga, Dwapar. In Dwapar, this happened. And who's doing this act? Is Duryodhan's younger brother, Dushashan. Bhai Gurdas even writes, Andar Sabha Dusasana. Dusasana means Dushashan. And Mathe Val Dropti Andi. They grabbed the hair of Dropti. They dragged her into the court. They dragged her into the court in front of Bhisham Patapa, a great grandfather, was watching this all happen. And the king, Dhritarashtra, is also watching this all happen. And then there's other characters, people that have given Shastra Vidya to her husbands, all respectable people that have qualities that make them high in this world, but high in that time, in that era, but yet they all stand by watching. That's what tells you that overall the mass, the population, how they can watch this happen, but none of them can act. So at this time, Duta no Farmaya Nangi Karoho Panchali Bandi. She was from Punjab, so they used to call her Panchali. Dropti was from Punjab, and they used to call her Panchali no Rakhya Hunda Si Ode Vaste as a nickname, because she had been from that area, and that time it was called that Shabd, Panchali. So they said that make her nude, make her naked in front of everybody. Now all are sitting by and are going to watch this. Some have their heads down, and some are actually watching to see if this is going to happen. She calls out to the person who is the avatar or the incarnation of Vishnu at that time, as calling out to him to rescue. But Krishna doesn't come. This is totally opposite from the story that comes in Hinduism. They said that Krishna heard her call right away. No, it didn't. She called out a couple of times, and then after seeing that now they started disrobing her, she calls out to Krishna as believing in Paramatma being all around and omnipresent. In this belief, this transcended Vishnu, and it went to Bhagavan. Right? Because these are Kirtam Nams. We can use the name of Krishna, but holding it for Paramatma, not for Vishnu's avatar. And that comes in Sanskriti this slok. Ek Krishnam ta sarv deva, dev deva ta atmah, atmang sri basudevas, je koi janas pev. Sanskriti slokan de vich aunda. That means that the one Paramatma who's above any filth and kalak resides in every being, giving them the source of energy. Right? Sri Basudevas. That way, Sayan de Vich. And this manner, when she thought, of Paramatma and called out in prayer, knowing that Paramatma is not far, he's also watching this act happening, that come to my rescue. Hamri karo haath de racha. Calling out in that manner. What happened at that time? The disrobing continued, but no nagan portion or no nude area of Dropti was seen. It was only her kapra. And until that Dusasan became defeated and seeing a whole pile of kapra on one side. But yet, to illustrate that point, a mentality dropping, but yet a woman realizing that there is bhakti inside of you. And that creates a shakti, and that light that's shown, that is that Mataji's power that comes down, that we'll refer to as our mother. In a form of nirgun srup, when there's no material creation or anything, we say to Paramatma as Gurudev Mata, Gurudev Pita, when really it is Paramatma that is our mother and father. But when you focus on a specific quality of Paramatma using his power to generate creation, you look to that power and we refer to as mother, because following into the guidelines that Guru Maharaj created for this world, there needs to be two parents to have a child. Now, at the beginning, remember the 32 qualities? The first two panktiyan that come, pichyocharan karna, asam mahalla panjava, nij bhakti seelvanti nar. What does that mean? That the true worship, devotional worship that we strive for itself is a calm, tolerant woman. It's embodied in the characteristics of a woman if she lives up to those very characteristics. Roop, Anup, Puri, Achar. That her very form is of purity, and Anup, meaning here, would typically mean beautiful, but the way it's been translated is Anupam. Anupam means above praises. Puri, Achar, that she has instilled in her great attributes. She has instilled in her great attributes, and look, those go hand in hand with that bhakti. Later on in this Shabd, Guru Maharaj goes on to outline those 32 attributes that we started this lecture with. We look at the same Shabd, and when from this Guru Nanak Academy stage, when Das was doing Katha of Guru Maharaj's avatar, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's avatar, this one pankti came into Das's sight, and that I wanted to illustrate because it means the same thing as the previous line. Because before Guru Nanak Dev Ji came, who came? It was Mata Nanak, Bibi Nanaki. Bibi Nanaki, I want to point out a specific point that I had overlooked when I originally presented this, that I want to point out now. Bibi Nanaki came in the form of bhakti, which is written right here. Pe Shushila Sab Gun Khani. Gun Khani means that she's embodiment of all virtues, all those 32 attributes. It can't be listed every time, so they'll say Sab Gun, all of them. Sab Gun Khani. Manaho mean manlo, meaning understand this. Bhagat, jano Bhagat Syari na likhiya means bhakti. Bhakti tar dehe sohani. That she is the very form, or think of it in this manner, that Bibi Nanaki herself is the embodiment of bhakti. That people can look towards her and learn which way bhakti should be accomplished in an individual. Look to her traits as a role model. Mano bhagat tare dehe sohani. It was as if the body of Bibi Nanaki is bhakti itself. And the point that I'm going to tell you now, and in the other picture that I show you, is that through a photo that was discovered at Bibi Nanaki Gurdwara in Sultanpur in the late 20th century, you see the only figure in this picture is Bibi Nanaki with her hands folded. No matter the circumstance, the others won't understand, or there's attachment involved, yet she is drid. Not as Guru Nanak Dev Ji's sister, as Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Sikh. And she's been remembered now in the Panth as the first Sikh, our first Sikh being Bibi Nanaki. Khalsa ji, I want to point out this point that I had been referring to. Bibi Nanaki never had any children. She could not conceive any children. It was just written that way. Yet she had the power. She could have asked for it before Akal Purkh being Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And surely Guru Maharaj would have granted it. But what did she ask for? That Guru Maharaj when it becomes difficult for me, at certain times, all I ask for is your vision, your darshan. I know you have to go. I see a world that's burning, Jagat Jalanda, like last week's topic. And you've seen this world burning, and char udasiyan dharan karonge, that you'll go in 4 directions. Yet, I hold my hands before you and I ask of you that if you need anything, don't ask anybody for anything. Just get it from me. If you need money, I'll give you money. If you need food, I'll give you food. Whatever you need, please ask me. I want to do that seva. And then the second is that if it becomes very difficult for me, my body can't take it, please at that time, come and give me darshan. Maharaj sitting towards the Dropti in the Middle East. And at Amrit Vela, Guru Maharaj says, we have to go to Sultanpur. We have to go now, Bhai Mardana. Bhai Mardana said, oh, to kinne ko sache Pasha? And Guru Maharaj ne haath taraya Bhai Mardana de sir upar. Maharaj placed the hand over the forehead of Bhai Mardana. What does he see? A crying woman with her hands folded, over and over calling Guru Nanak Dev Ji's name, which was Bibi Nanaki. A pull that comes, Govind Pao Pagata Pukha. Well, only Maharaj feeds off is the love of his devotees. Right? So, she never had a child, yet she had the power. Par hukum raza de vich rahi. Right? This is how strong she was as a woman. Now, when Guru Maharaj, because we're talking about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, a shabd Maharaj ne ucharan kita, asa diwar de vich, so kyo manda aakhiye jit jamme rajan. Now how can you call a woman bad when she is the one that produces kings that you're bowing your head before? Now Khalsa Ji, think about this. This had to be said in Gurbani. You can understand that the mentality there had dropped. Because in the scriptures, in the Hindu scriptures, a character named by Manu had introduced into the Simritiyan, which had been compiled into their total scriptures, that a woman is the root of all problems. Simply summarized, the Manu Simritiyan have stated with several quotes such things. You'll also find these kind of quotes in Islam as well. And I want to point to you something I found in the paper, in one of the papers that caught my eye, and I ripped it out, and I thought it would come in use in a future lecture. That if you look towards our Islam Panapra, in Islam, Saudi Arabia, which is the home of Mecca and Medina, their holy cities, which they bow to every day, and they're bowing to those cities every day within a country which is run by Islam law, and sexes or genders are segregated in schools and public places, and on top of that, women are not allowed to vote or even drive. Not even allowed to vote or drive. And you're going to see other examples that come from our Hindu Panapra, that you see problems that Guru Maharaj had to address. Again, Guru Maharaj is taking people back to Satyug mentality. But what is happening is they keep dwindling into an era of darkness because they're surrounded by those masses, surrounded by that Sangat all around them. So, even Guru Maharaj had to say in Gurbani, Brahman Kali Kat, Kanyaka Anacharika Tan, that the part that I'll highlight is the killing and selling of women is strictly forbidden. You're not to do this. It's written also in Aratnama. So, with the story of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's mother, Maharani Rajkaur, this woman, when she was born, her parents saw that it was a girl and decided to go bury her. Why? Because there is a saying, or it was more or less witchcraft, that if you put some gourd into her mouth and then also put a thread of cotton into her hand and read this mantra, a witchcraft mantra, which says, Gur khai, puni katti, apna ai, birenu kalni. That you don't come yourself, send your brother. Send your brother. A lot of women and men had forced this mentality down through writings that have been embedded into other scriptures, like I mentioned, the Manu Simritiya. And then women that had been cemented down with this mentality have become enemies of themselves. If they have a girl, they don't want a girl, and then they'll do prayers, do seva, do part, so they get another child. This is their mentality that has come. So what had happened is, Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Nani, at that time, had said that Jaake seva kare koi Mahapurush thi. And who was at that time? He was actually a Mahapurush. He wasn't no Pakhandi at that time. Sant Baba Gudar Singh. And when food was brought before Sant Baba Gudar Singh, unhe chala ke pet mari. The plate that came before him with the food in the glass, unhe chala ke mari. Because at the moment that it was brought before him, a flash came before his eyes, and he saw what act they had performed. The act of burying their child just based on the fact that she was a girl. He said, go undo your sin right now. She's still breathing. She is to give birth to a Maharaja, to give birth to a king. Go undo your act. Regardless that if she had been giving birth to a king. The point is, he stopped her, and he stopped her and him from performing this act or carrying it on, and undid it. They went and they started shoveling, and they found the child was still breathing. The child was still breathing. As she grew up, and this is the time after our Gurus. What our Gurus had preached, still, people like a vacuum, like I said originally, is that they had to come up to a mentality here, but they fell down as if sucked in by the mass around them. They fell down again. And what happened at that time was that child was saved, named Rajkaur. She would marry Bhai Mahasingh and Maharaj, coming together to produce a Maharaja. The parent's name is embedded right before Maharaja Ranjit Singh's name, right? So Ranjit Singh, then Maharaja Ranjit Singh, you read the mother and father's name as well in there. Now, we turn to Guru Angad Dev Ji. With Guru Angad Dev Ji, as Bhai Lana Ji, he had come to the Guru Kar, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji is in Kartarpur, by hearing Gurbani. Gurbani attached Bhai Lana Ji to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. But it was done through a Gursikh. A Gursikh named Bhai Jodh Ji, who had been reading it during Amrit Vela, and Bhai Lana Ji lying, not happy with the Devi Puja that he had been performing for quite some while, because it was a family tradition, that he heard the Shabd from Asa Diwar, and then it pulled him towards Bhai Jodh Ji, and Bhai Jodh Ji did what a Gursikh should do. Didn't attach with himself, he attached him to Guru Sahib at that time. He said, Kartar, the Creator is living in Kartarpur, jaake aap mil lo. And as he went, ek kadam Guru Maharaj Ji wal putya, Guru Maharaj Ji meets him at the outskirts of Kartarpur. And now you move to the next Guru, Guru Amar Das Ji, whose nephew is married to the daughter of Guru Angad Dev Ji, Bibi Amaro. And the equal role of man and woman is illustrated. And how is that done? Well, Guru Amar Das Ji had been upset after a Brahmin called him Nigura, and that he had eaten food done by his seva in his home. And by doing so, he thought if all of his yatra had become defiled, he left, calling him a name of Nigura. He, hurting inside, still not being able to sleep, with the same comment revolving in his head, he woke up to Gurbani being sung. First Nitnem was done, Kanto, Bimi Amro. And then now, in the last part of Amrit Vela, she starts to churn milk and starts singing a Shabd of Guru Nanak Dev Ji that used to be sung repeatedly in Kirtan form in Guru Angad Dev Ji's darbar that she had memorized. And that's Maru Mahalla Pehla Kar Pehla, Karni Kagad Man Maswani, Bura Pala Doe Lekh Pe. And when the Shabd came to Pya Manur Kanchan Fir Hove, Je Gur Mila Taneha, that even if you're spoiled inside and you've become completely black, you can become like gold if you meet your true Guru. He came out after hiding and listening to the shabd, he came out and got Bibi Amro to repeat it again. She first was hesitant, but then she repeated it, and then he asked, Putri, please take me to the one who repeated it, said this shabd. She said, the one who said this shabd is in the second form, and I have the privilege of calling my father. So they went to Guru Sahib. United, two. Man, Paijod ji, and woman, Bibi Amro. The same act in different scenarios, but performed using Gurbani as Gurmat, Gursikhs, and two coming together. And then when you look to Guru Arjan Dev Ji, when he went to Vadali because of the hate Prithi Chand was showing him at Amritsar, coming to Vadali with Mata Ganga Ji and the avatar of Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, just about to happen. The Sangat's doing seva. The men are sitting forward and the women are sitting way in the back. And the women want to ask things to Guru Arjan Dev Ji as well too. But yet are hesitant because there's a mentality that's dropped down that they're thinking that we don't have any right to go and ask. It's only the men. But what does Guru Arjan Dev Ji say? This comes from Suraj Prakash, our whole oldest ityas. And it was said at Vadali, at the same place jithe Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji da avatar hoya. He said, what Guru Arjan Dev Ji said, Main sangat ko nit onasari. This is his love for the sangat that's speaking. That every day I follow according to what my sangat says. It was the sangat's hukum to say that don't marry Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji with Chandu's daughter. So be it happened, even though Guru Maharaj Ji saw the consequences coming as his own shahidi. It's Maharajji's love. The first line that you hear, and then what does Guru Maharaj Ji say? Sikh, Sikhani, meaning a male, female, Gursikh. Sikh, Sikhani, main, pedna tari. I hold no difference between man and woman. Bringing him up again as an equal. But what would happen over again? The same tendency to fall down. But still, Guru Maharaj Ji would still bring him up. It was the fault of both. There was on one side mentality cemented down, one side there was a push on that mentality to stay in that fashion. So, Guru Amar Das Ji, going back to Guru Amar Das Ji, in this one photo, you see three Guru Sahibs. One being Guru Amar Das Ji, and one being Guru Ram Das Ji, and one being Guru Arjan Dev Ji. All surrounding one woman, who because of past bhakti earned the life of a woman that would gain the status and push her higher than any Gursikh from the past, the present and the future. And these are the words of Guru Amar Das Ji. Hey, there's never been, na hai, na, and isn't at present, hovegi aisi, that there will be in the future either. Pita Guru, that you've earned the right of having a Pita as your Guru. Jag Gur hoy Kanta, that you have as your husband as a Guru. Puttar Guru hoy, your son is going to be a Guru, Guru Arjan Dev Ji. And Potra Mahant, you're going to have a great grandson. You're going to have a great grandson, Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. And all the relationships. After all, coming to Bibi Pani Ji. Bibi Pani Ji that had done the seva when Guru Maharaj Ji was doing Ishnan, helping Guru Amar Das Ji in his old age do Ishnan, and sitting on a table while Maharaj Ji doing Ishnan, that the pedal or the leg of the table was broken underneath. She saw this, and that if the weight of Guru Amar Das Ji had shifted towards that side, the table would have wavered. She stuck her foot underneath. And it would. At that time, Guru Amar Das Ji shifted his weight, and the sharp end of that table pierced into the foot, and that blood streamed out. And as it went with the water towards the drain, Guru Amar Das Ji caught sight of it. And he said this vak. He said these words. Tere naal, and on top of this, the words that I haven't included because I didn't have enough space, was Sam tuade naal, sam hoya na sakai tuade naal, and tor badai kathan na jai, that your praises can never be fully captured into writing. On top of that, there is no one equal to you. No one. Now, at the same time, Guru Amar Das Ji, in his fight, remember, Guru Maharaj Ji had to accomplish a lot of things. One chapter of it was the role of women. Satya eh na akhiyan jo madya lag jalan. Those aren't true women. Sati. Remember, a shabd of pati means honor, honorable person. Sati for a woman means a truthful person, a living, abiding by truth. Satya eh na akhiyan jo madya lag jalan. Those aren't true satis that go and burn on top of a funeral pyre of her husband. Because that's what the tradition was according to Hinduism, that if a woman saw her husband pass, as the husband is being burned in his funeral pyre, the woman is to go sacrifice herself because she is not to live another second. That was the tradition. Maharaji said, no. Why? Nanak satya janiyan je birhe chot maran. Those are true satis. Those are true ones that in life have deserted any desires, worldly desires, meaning died for the world. Pehla maran kabul, have died for the worldly desires and worldly longings, and have developed a longing of union with Paramatma. Developed a longing with Paramatma, birhe. That's what birhe. And that birhe, that longing is what hit them within the chest, and they've died for the world. What Guru Maharaji says, what a true sati is. And then on top of there's other sakhis of Guru Amar Das Ji, where there's a Rani that came covering her face. Now we know that our Islam Panapra, a certain portion of them, they cover their face. And what does that serve? What purpose does that serve? That nobody can place a bad eyesight onto them. Well, Maharaji says, in darbar aake muh ਢੱਕ ਦੀਆਂ, no, ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਠੀਕ. And ਕਦੇ ਢੱਕਣਾ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ. Because Maharaji's darbar, Maharaji being above ਕਾਮ ਕ੍ਰੋਧ ਲੋਭ ਮੋਹ ਹੰਕਾਰ, being above this world, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹੀ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਤਰਨੀ, ਉਹਨੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਢੱਕ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਅੱਗੇ. But it doesn't become of us to hide our face. It becomes of us to use self-control on both sides of our genders, right? Male or female. Out of the 22 Manjitars, Guru Amar Das Ji appointed 4 to be women, saying that it doesn't mean that you just stay in your home and that it becomes of you just to make prashade pani and that's all you're supposed to do. No, it becomes of you to go to different areas. And je aap parpakta Sikhi de vich, if you're solid in Sikhi, prachar karo. Get up and stand. Khas karke on a whole, I see in our community, nobody wants to come up on the stage and talk about Sikhi. Now how do you expect Sikhi to be preached? Our whole point of preaching is so people can attach to Guru Maharaj's Shabd, understand what a Shabd is so they can appreciate what's being sung in Kirtan. Right? I witnessed a funeral in my younger days, in my teenage years, is when a friend had passed away. Though he was half Christian, half Islam, his parents were, most of his friends were apne log. And at the stage when people were talking about this individual, all of his close friends never got up on the stage to talk about him. One person who knew him for a couple of days was a white Caucasian male who came up onto the stage and he talked about him. And people were struck with the heartfelt comments that he made. But nobody had the effort or himmat to come up on stage and say something. When it needs to be said, you should. Well, Guru Maharaj Ji did prachar of this. He pushed women up ahead, and you can see there's women in these pictures of the pracharaks that Guru Amar Das Ji made. 22 pracharak Guru Amar Das Ji ne sthapan kite. Now we come to a story that takes place in Balla. At Sri Darbar Sahib Khalsa Ji, I want to point out one trait, a little aside from the topic. When you go to Sri Darbar Sahib, Jarur Parikrama karo. But before you go into Darbar Sahib, go to Gurdwara Thada Sahib, which is next to Akal Takht Sahib. Why? Because there was a point in history when our Guru Sahib, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji, who after 26 years of doing tapasya, gets the Gurta Gaddi, and now he comes to his birthplace to pay homage and matha take at Sri Darbar Sahib. But what happens? The Darshani deity's doors are closed by the people of Amritsar. And the organizers, none of them came out to show at that time any devotion. None of them showed any devotion, rather they shut the doors. It reminds me of Gursikhs here by Jeevan Singh, who'd go to different places. Some would fully accept him and he'd do kirtan. But there are some places in the Okanagan Valley, he would go to do prachar and they would shut the doors and wouldn't let him come into the darbar. How much hatred that can come in people that call themselves Sikhs. It's unbelievable, but yet it comes. And then it happened to Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji at the time. And what did Guru Maharaj Ji do? And by Jeevan Singh learning from Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji, he sat outside of the Gurdwara and did Kirtan. And Guru Maharaj Ji sat outside of Darshani Deori and he did Simran. And during that time, who broke out of their shell? Who broke out of their mentality? It was more or less a test now over the Guru Padshahs, over the time of the Gurus. Has that development happened in that mentality? And it had. And what happened? Women collected together using the leadership of Mata Haroji. And to this day, women are the organizers of the Gurdwara that symbolizes this, that it represents this significant act in our history. Is Mata Haroji came with a group of women, apologetic for what's been happening, the disrespect that's been shown to Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji. And they asked Guru Maharaj Ji, come to our home, so we can show you full respect. 6 kilometers away from Sri Darbar Sahib, from where Gurdwara Thada Sahib was, 6 kilometers away, you'll find a pind, Valla. On the eastern side of Valla, there's a Gurdwara known as Gurdwara Kotha Sahib. Gurdwara Kotha Sahib was the home of Mata Haroji. And Mata Haroji came, did seva for 17 days for Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji. And with folded hands, she comes before and asks in apology for the act of all Amritsariye, for the act of the people that nobody came, that she heard outside of Amritsar and she came. She asks, look how much mercy, how much forgiveness she has in her head. And I want you to read this out behind me. Saas saas hum poolan hare, saas saas hum poolan hare, saas saas hum poolan hare, tum samrath agante apare, tum samrath agante apare, saas saas hum poolan hare, saas saas hum poolan hare, tum samrath agante apare, tum samrath agante apare. Maharji would smile and so happy that without having to explain to him what your role was, they figured out what their role was. There had been now a crack coming out of that cement that I've been talking about. That mentality pushed down on people to lower the role of women. And it had flourished to Guru Sikhs coming out. And Maharji said, Maya, Rab Rajaiyan, Bhakti Laiyan. That women, this is a lot of meanings. You can get at least 4 different translations out of this. And each hold, and the one that I'll draw your attention, that Maya, these women are pleasing and have the ability to please Paramatma. And this blessing coming to him, and they've realized their role in life and what they embody, Bhakti Laiyan. That they've strived and pushed towards worshipping Paramatma in a devotional form. The Gurdwara now stands as Gurdwara Kotha Sahib. each year these women do Sukhmani Sahib, countless samagams of Sukhmani Sahib here. And they run most of the Gurdwara, and when you'll see a samagam, last samagam, look it up on the internet, right? Valla samagam, and you'll see Bhai Pardeep Singh Ludhiane wale doing katha on stage, and just a group of women, barely a couple of men, it's just women. Women come here, still to this day, and represent the act that happened then. Right? The act that happened then. And then they're interviewed. It was a newscast that was put on YouTube that I have a clip of. If you're interested, I'll show you in some future classes, or otherwise you can look up yourself. Now, we know about the 1699 events. That Amrit was given to man and woman. Right? It was not given in a different manner. They were both given the same Amrit. And now you see in 1708, an illustration or a mural that's been placed in the Langar Hall of Sri Hazur Sahib. And they had published so many books on the actual events, as much history as you can gather together of what really happened in 1708, and then they made a mural. A mural at the Langar Hall, because no photographs will be kept in the Darbar Sahib or in the Gurdwara, so they put it in the Langar Hall. And when you're leaving the Langar Hall, you'll see this huge painting. And it shows the events of how it happened. And in the events, you'll see Bhai Mani Singh sitting on Tabya, you'll see Chor Bardars, you'll see the Panj Pyare, and Guru Maharaj Ji, Matha taking to Guru Granth Sahib Ji in Beer Asan. It happened in Beer Asan. Then Maharaj Ji would do Panj Prakarma around Guru Granth Sahib Ji. You can even see the Nariyal, the Panj Paise and Nariyal that Guru Maharaj Ji placed, which also has a significant meaning. And then you see Mata Pakwar holding the gun that you can find in Sri Hazur Sahib, the Darbar right next to it, the Mata Sahib Kaur da Sthan hega. Huge weapons that she used to use with Atmak Bal. And then on top of it, it's not just Mata Sahib Kaur, there's other Singhaniya. I will use Mata Sahib Kaur, but there's other Singhaniya that were there that day that were in pura form. Where it started inside with Bhakti, now it come in with Bani and Bana now. In full form now. Full form. Yet there are other women that are still on that path. That are sitting in Sangat with Puri Sharda, with their hands folded towards Guru Granth Sahib Ji. They're still coming to that mentality, coming to that point of commitment and pushing themselves. And that's really what it is. It's a path, right? We're all stepping on this path, but we have to realize what Guru Maharaj Ji as Gurmat had taught us. Then with Mata Pakwar, this being an actual photo of Mata Pakwar that was made at Janwade de Rajesi. They took Mata Pakwar, who was very old then. She used to sit at Janwade in the castle. There's still a castle there. The Gurdwara is inside of the castle. Mata Pakwar's picture is made and it's kept actually in the Darbar there. She used to do her Nitnem at Gurdwara Nanak Chira, which is a couple kilometers further. And then she would come back and do prachar for the Sangat there. Mata Pakwar Bare, Bhai Veer Singh, who I'm going to mention today, a lot more right after this. It's going to be about Bhai Veer Singh, what he said, what Bhai Veer Singh said. Because he saw that first there's a love of Punjabi that was going down. So he wrote in Punjabi. He wrote countlessly in Punjabi. And then he saw that the role of female is still like a vacuum, had been sucked down again. So he produced literature. Mata Subrai, or Rana Surat Singh's wife. The novel is called Rana Surat Singh, but it's actually all about his wife, Mata Raj Kaur. And then there's Satwant Kaur, Sundri, and that's what we're going to mention at the end, again what I'm alluding to. But this poem what Bhai Veer Singh wrote, it illustrates so much what Guru Maharaj Ji says, and it's captured in what Mata Pakwar is, and those 30. So sajje khabbe takke nahi, piche modna dekhe. Now on top of it, piche nu nahi. And now looking back, that I can turn back. No. Piche modna dekhe, agge tang, meaning leaping forward. Agge tang, agere rakhe, agga vekhe. Dekh, lammi nadar nihali hai. Lammi nadar na dekh diya. That here, Shahidiya, but Guru Gobind Singh Ji is watching. It's his another on this battlefield on Mukhtar Sahib, that she's keeping her eyes towards Paramatma, and whatever is being an obstacle in the Khalsa path, she's going and meeting the obstacle head on. Remember we started with Satyug? Durg banalo. Make a fortress your own body. Meaning kick the enemies out. And what did she do? Papi panj tu doot chak dere pag ge. They had run off. She had made her body a durg, a fortress. And some were compelled enough on the battlefield as enemies to say that it was Durga Devi on the battlefield that day. They had said Durga has come on. No, it was Guru Maharaj's blessing upon Mata Pagpur to show that Bhakti now translated into Shakti. Remember the guns out of the 32, one was Surbirta. Surbirta. And that other blessing of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji was shining overhead, Maya Rabba Rajaiyan. When men had forgotten their role and they fell, then a woman had the strength and she knew where her role was. She lifted the man to where where the man should be. With Bhai Mahasingh and the Chali Mukte. That Bemukh ho gaye si, but they came back and became liberated on that battlefield. Now, to tell you about other stories, because when I came to the camp, with the Corps United camp, they had asked in their email to me that introduce some other stories as well. That we've heard some of these stories, we want to hear some other stories. And I was haran when I went onto the website. I hadn't heard some of the stories of the Bibiyan that have been placed on there. They had done such a good research and placed it on the website. Well, this is one to add. And it's mentioned by Bhai Veer Singh. I had nobody else to really turn to. It was Bhai Veer Singh. So I opened it up, and then there's this one book. He wrote Sant Gatha and Bir Darshan. Bir Darshan meaning that showing that courageousness, that prowess to go on the battlefield and to fight, that Biras. Right? Mai Matokor was her name. Mai Matokor. And there's a place in Pakistan still today called Dera Khalsa. Near another place here, there's called Shoho Khalsa. And then Afghanistan, there's another place, it's also termed something Khalsa. Because at one point, there were jungles here. And this is around the time of the demise of the Khalsa Raj, when the Dogre had betrayed Maharaja Ranjit Singh. They had taken a lot of property, hoping that the English, helping the English, they would, show them if that we helped you, we will get something in return. So Gyan Singh Dogra had some property around this area, and Gakhardwal de Raja had some area a little bit around this area too. There's a fight going on for property. Now it would have been established by the Khalsa in a jungly area, but eventually it became a village as they cut down the trees and established farmlands. And a village became evident. When you go towards Rawalpindi and you look up Rawalpindi on wiki maps, you'll find this area, which I've taken out as an image. Dera Khalsa. In Dera Khalsa, Bhai Veer Singh writes, there's a Mahal Mayadi or a Maidi Astan, where there's a Maida Astan. Still, they refer to it as Maida Astan. What had happened? Her husband, Mai Matokor's husband, was Bhai Navaru Singh. Bhai Navaru Singh had been, there's a duty call that he had to leave towards Lahore. As his presence had left, they had found out that this village is vulnerable. So, Gakhardwal de Raje collected his army and presented towards this village to conquer it, to increase his zameen, and then gain an upper hand so he could go and attack Gyan Singh Dogra's land. Well, what happened is, as this army was coming, the word came to Mai Matokor. By Mai Matokor were Sikhi Parpak Reisi, but the other villagers, though rooted in Sikhi originally, like people are now, they had dwindled. Sikhi had dwindled in their home, had gone away. And some still remained Sikh, and some were to the point that they came and just matha tek to Guru Granth Sahib Ji. There was no Gurdwara at that time. There was a Dharamsal with Guru Granth Sahib Ji Prakash beside the home that was built by Bhai Navaru and Bibi Matho. They had built it, and the Sangat from the village used to come. But the seva was all done by this one family. Now what had happened at that time was when Bhai Nabaru Singh left, he had lots of shastras within his home. Bibi Matoko and horses in his stable. And they were well off in the place that they stayed. When the army came, Bibi Matto got on top of her horse, rode out, called each villager to come forth to her home and bring, if you don't have weapons, collect the weapons in her home. And when those weapons weren't enough, they brought whatever utensils they used on the farms. And they all lined up together under the general guidance of Bibi Matto as their general. She stood on a tibbi, on a small sand hill. And she lined at everybody, and she's told that who does not come, I will tell my husband, and at that time, you'll pay a penalty for not being here when the villagers needed you, collectively. They brought their goods and wealth and hid it within her home. They had a big home at that time, so they hid it. The valuables of the villagers were hid in Bibiji's home. Well, now the army presented, and the general of the army, the Gakhardwal Raja, he all of a sudden saw that there's a woman general. And he took a step back. But he said, if I take a step back and I retreat now, what will happen is that I'll be labeled that I ran away from a fight and being a female on the other side. It was in his head. It was a mentality in his head that if I run now, I'll be labeled as a coward because there was a woman on this side and you couldn't fight a woman. But yet that would be because there would be a mass population not realizing the power of that woman. That woman now summoned the army to go head on head. And as swords started clashing, what happened, she saw overall, was that the army started moving back. Because they didn't have the experience of the soldiers. They started moving back. And there was a good 7,000 on one side, and there was a few of them. As they would move forward, they start falling back. And she saw that there was her time to go onto the battlefield. She came down in the same manner that Mata Pa accorded, slayed a number of soldiers. As they went down, their army started to retreat back. By then, her own army of villagers started encircling her and protecting her in a circle around her as their general. Now the Raja saw that I don't want any more bloodshed. He threw his weapons down. Instead of retreat, he threw his weapons down, and it was victory for Bibi Matokor and the inexperienced villagers as soldiers who had realized that who their forefathers that set up this village, what surbirta they had inside of them. They had fallen, they were reminded. They were all equals. It all is about equals. When one falters, you help the other. That's a part of marriage too. When one falters, you help the other. If your Amrit Vela is dwindling, the other helps the other get up. So this is taken from page 111 if you ever want to read it, of Bir Darshan. Shaheed Bibi Balbir ko Avjato. Now Khalsa ji, in 1923, what had happened is that the English had started taking away estates from rulers. And one was a rule of Nabha. The area of Nabha had been taken over by the English. And they were finding a hard time by the people of Punjab had fighting them off. There was a place called Gangsar Jato. And that area, they had forbidden them to come to the Gurdwara, jo bhi haiga. But what the Khalsa Panth did, led by Baba Sundri Singh Ji Pindrawale and Baba Atar Singh Ji Mastuane Wale, they set up Jathe, and the Jathe were to go and peacefully protest at these areas against the English so they could go to the Gurdwaras and do a Khand Path. And they started a Khand Paths in a continuous fashion until they would get to 101. And they would do so and do Ardas over and over again to drive the British from this area, to still keep it within the Sikhs' hands and still keep the respect in these areas. So what had happened is that there's a huge story behind this, but I'm going to shorten it down on that one bloody day in 1924, before they had been arresting and they had been beating down, but this time the British picked up guns. And they picked up guns and they started shooting. And at the front of one Jatha that had been sent was Bibi Balbir Kaur. Bibi Balbir Kaur had come with her child, a newly born child, in her arms. And when they were standing there, the English, to move him back, they were guarding the place, you can see in the background, jithe Akhand Path chalda si, to protect that area so the English wouldn't go in there to stop it. Bibi Balbir Kaur, what did she see? She looks down to see her child's crying, and there's a bullet that's hit her child. And what does she do? Will she go and tend to him? She sees all her brothers and sisters standing next to her. She puts the child down, and what does she see? Another bullet hits her. She falls to the ground. Shahidi paagi. But her stance in Sikhi nahi chaddi. And jehdi daat Guru Maharaj Ji ne bakshi, she saw that Guru Maharaj Ji has taken it back. And the child, though not of an age, jithe surat sambhali hai, but even in her lifetime, she gets to see, and she's privileged enough to see that her child has become shaheed. Where she got to see the child from the beginning to the end, it stayed in Sikhi, in whatever manner that Guru Maharaj Ji had given me that child. You don't see in this photo, but she had put the baby on the child. And there's another version of this photo that they'll show, that Bibi Balbir Kaur with blood seeping from her chest as she got shot. A Sakhi that Bhai Pardeep Singh also mentions is a Bibi, which I've labeled as Bibi with a kirpan on her mind, which captures wrath. And what I want to mention about this Sakhi is that it's a small Sakhi that comes in Gurmukh Sikhya that you can find on page 153. What had happened is this Sikhni, at that time, Haji Amrit nahi shakya si. She was lying on her bed with a high fever, and seeing that her life is going, she sees that how precious her life is. And she says to Maharaj Ji Sache Pasha, how I wish to take Amrit. And not only take Amrit at any place, Hazur Sahib chit kita si oda. Jaake main Hazur Sahib Amrit shaka. I look at her, and in an image in my head, I see her as one of those Singhani standing in that photo that I showed you of the 1708. And what she did, what happened, she fell unconscious. And she, as if saw her Atma come out of her body. And as this Atma went, it went to Siri Hazur Sahib. It went to Siri Hazur Sahib under her kamana, her desire. And came to Hazur Sahib. What did she notice? There was an Amrit ceremony happening. So what did she do? She quickly says, "Main bhi ablaki banna." She writes her name down as ablaki, takes part in the Amrit ceremony. As she's in the Amrit ceremony, Amrit shakla, and now they come to distributing deg. When the day comes, they give her a portion that falls in her hand. And what does she notice as she keeps her head down? That her kirpan has fallen on the ground. And dekho inna pyar si. At a point, Haji Amrit nahi shakya si. But pehle hi unnu rahat bar inna pyar ho gaya si, because the Panj Pyare ne shiksha bhi ditti si in that Amrit ceremony. And right away, having a love for her rahat, leaving Kara Prasad in one hand, she quickly picks up a kirpan and puts it against her heart without thinking. But what happens is, as that kirpan comes up, the nok part, she pressed it into her chest and she started bleeding. And all of a sudden, she comes up into consciousness where she had been lying originally on her bed. As she comes up, she looks at her chest, and what happens is she sees blood coming and has stained her kapre. As she opens it up to see, there's an image of a kirpan on her heart. As if Maharaj Ji had engraved on her heart, later on she would heal and go on to take Amrit herself. A love had symbolized in the form of a kirpan on her heart. A true story that he read right by Veer Singh even writes, Jad isnu hosh parti means come back. ਤਾਂ ਇਸਨੇ ਕੀ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਛਾਤੀ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਖੂਨ ਨਿਕਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ, in the form of a kirpan ਦਿਸਿਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ. Khalsa ji, I take this symbolic for us, where a kirpan on her head and the story of wrath and sticking with wrath and having a pure form of love for wrath, which was a quality I also mentioned in the 32 attributes. Now, I'm going to mention a slok of Bhagat Kabir ji. And Bhagat Kabir ji mentions this slok, and he compares two ladies. Piche parna. Kabir, Nrip nari kyon nindi hai? Nrip means king. King Nari, you translate as royalty. right? So Kabir, Nrip Nari kyun nindiye? Kyun har cheri ko maan? O mang savare bikha ko? O ho simre har naam. The slok before this, Bhagat Kabir ji talks about a Nrip Nari, and he mentions some things that he stated a truth. And when people questioned him and said, you just slandered a royal woman for what? An unknown woman that's doing seva, charu seva na dharamsa. How can you compare? That's like right now if somebody said that Princess Catherine, is nothing in your eyes, and some woman that people don't know, that's nameless, is doing seva in the Gurdwara, charu di seva kari jandi hai, ja langar di seva kari jandi hai, ja chaur seva di kari jandi hai. This is Bhagat Kabirji's mentality, looking at him. He's comparing him. And when asked why, he says, I didn't slander, but I'll tell you what I saw. Because the one you call royalty, right, is always oh mang meaning kesan de vich chirmi pa deni, ja kesan de kat dena, ja kar dena. Oh mang savare bikha ko, that royalty is always fashioning her hair up for poison, for this world, for Maya. Oh simre har naam. And then on one side there's a woman that's countlessly doing simran, and that's what I call beauty. That's what I call beauty. Oh andro savar de. When there's a praying for Bani, Bana's gonna come out outside too. Having both has meaning. If it's Bana on the outside, there's nothing on the inside. Ovani galbandi. But then you look here, and I want to tell you about an extreme before I come to a point I want to make here. Vade jo dise hai log, tinko vyape maya rog, chinta rog. Tinko vyape hai chinta rog. That even the world's famous people, those high figures that you see countlessly, all of them are plagued by Maya. It'll take different forms, such as chinta and worries. Why? Because they're tarnishing themselves. We saw a character that some of us, the elderly people, have seen, that have grown up, seeing Michael Jackson and what he did to his image. Then I want to tell you one story that, I don't know, it just hits me very hard when I learned about it, but yet they still put her image on things, and they don't realize how much pain she went through because of her actions. I said at the camp, one thing I want to mention is I look around you as nature. Nature is naturally growing. But what are people doing to tarnish their beauty? Is that first, simran androni karna, and srir da vani dhyan rakhna. Srir da ki karna? They keep polishing it up. Kesan di beadbi hondi thaan thaan. And today, Vishalaya, for a Sikh woman, it's a problem in our community. And I don't mean to stereotype anybody here that I'm saying there's anybody here. But those that are here can at least take this prachar and maybe pass it on. Because there are Sikh women here to this day. There are beacons, literally beacons, that are guiding other ships, other women to where they should be going. Right? Understanding how the value of hair. And one that you can see with Marilyn Monroe, that I'm going to use as an example of how she looked. People might label this as this kind little country girl image, right? There's a certain hair color you can see, yet in black and white you don't see. And the apparel that she's wearing, their wardrobe, what she's wearing. But then you might know, and I know time to time you might have seen this image, then there's this hair of Marilyn Monroe. But this one's famous, that one wasn't. Because this era and their mentality makes that famous and not this one. These images are bombarding it, but she, on the top, had showed the people glamour, what they thought should be glamour, but inside was a wreck. And the day before she passed away, this is her image. This is her image the day before she committed suicide. There's even other examples. Amy Weinstein today, just in the past month or so, she committed suicide. And these people, if you look at Marilyn Monroe, the day before filming a movie, you can see countlessly she's worn out. That everybody, she's the attention of all the men in this world. Even women strive to look like her. Right? Women strive to look like her. She's on in magazines. Her poster is up on men's walls. And this is her, but nobody knows her in this picture. But people will know how much pain she had when this is published. Marilyn Monroe found dead. Sleeping piece overdose blame. Nobody can wonder how this glamour girl fell. This is an example of an extreme of when one person didn't have any rules or any guidance to push her. A sad story, but never you'll see these pictures or the one before. You'll see this image, which Andy Warhol made this photo. And this is what Marilyn Monroe became. You can design her in whatever way you want in your head. You'll never know which one's the real one. Is that what it is? Look, Guru Maharaji, specifically now speaking about superficial, if this is what we're going to judge as beauty. For a Gursikh, it becomes difficult, and for Bibi it becomes difficult, and even for men, for men it's a huge transition where Adara comes, but for women it becomes even more difficult when other women are gawking them and looking at them, and they're seeing some stubble on their chin, or there's some bit of a mustache that's coming in. This is natural, right? For some people, according to our body and its composition, and because of our karmas, this is going to happen. But yet there's countless excuses and there's countless rationale that will happen. And I got some women to write it down. I'm going to read out certain things that people say that they're actually feeding themselves lies and making them truths inside of their heads. Convincing themselves it's okay in Sikhi. But it's not. I bleach my hair for myself only. I don't care what other people think. They're looking in the mirror, countless times spent in the mirror, and certain after a while they see a pimple would pop it, or they see that there's too much hair between their eyebrows right here. It looks like a unibrow. They have to take it off. These kind of thinkings, and all plagued by a mirror. Just keep looking at your own image. And then they don't know it, but in their subconscious, the images of a polished face and a face that's been completely done, whether it's been plastic surgery or makeup, and put on images is sitting at the back of their head, but they don't really know that's actually plaguing them. So genetically, women shouldn't have facial hair, so it's okay to remove it. Who made you a geneticist that you understand that a woman should not have hair on her face? We all have so much hair on our face. When there's a beam of sunlight comes, then you see the small hairs on all our face, all over our face. Say, I can color my hair and still be a Gursikh. These are lies that people feed and convince themselves. So, I'm better about myself, beautiful if I look this way, eyebrows plucked, hair removed or bleached. I can get laser, hair removals, treatments, and then retake Amrit and be Sikh again. I have a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to go through it. There's even some that say I have a hormonal imbalance which causes me to have more facial hair. So my facial hair isn't natural. I'm sure Guru Sahib would approve if I were to have them removed. These kind of things. They'll convince themselves, but tell you these are demons. These are little lies that come to you. You need Sangat at that point. You need these women. There are women to this day that there's a lot of hair that grows underneath their chin, but strong. And they've realized their fortress on the outside. They've created a fortress on the outside and fought out these little demons inside. And they're strong and they don't care anything about what anybody thinks of themselves. They're content with what their body that Guru Maharaji has given. Look to them. Look to them. We look to people that have moved ahead in life to help us move ahead. In that manner, there's a messaging age. Social networks are abundant. And you can easily contact these people. Do Sangat with them. I've seen these Bibi's photos. I know so many. And some of them are the ones that wrote these. Because they had to fight it in their head and push it aside. And also, from the male perspective, it disheartens me, but then male people push upon this to their partners and wives too to get hair removal done. There are figures now to this day that are teaching. I won't name names because it doesn't become of us to name names. Big figures that have been looked upon as Sikh here in Vancouver. That when my mother, she was gone to the gym and there was another woman doing exercise on a treadmill, she noticed that a woman had done electrolysis on her face. Just damaged the hair pores itself. Remember, these hairs are going to play an influence when Bhakti comes about. Rom de vich do Bhakti chalni. In unison, they're going to vibrate with Guru Maharaj's Simran, which is going to create like as if Sangat is roaring Simran inside of you. But yet, she saw this woman had done this, so she questioned her. And that woman being honest, she said that exactly what happened. My husband said that, "Maine change nahi lagde tode buthe, mukte." Maaf karna my language, but that's the language that she had used, that he had used on her. That doesn't look good on your face. Go change it. Otherwise, he threatened her. He threatened her. And she did electrolysis. I don't know the reasons. Every woman will have certain reasons, certain pressures. And it comes from this side, and sometimes it's just demons inside sitting from influence on the outside. Everybody is their own book. And what I tell you is that even here, some of the academy parents' mothers, I'd seen that one Bibi, and it was easily seen, and I had looked upon her as in pride that this woman has hairs and she's content. But within the last couple of months, they're all gone. Shiromani Prabandhak Committee one time, Bibi Jagir Kaur, I think I pronounced her name right. They've shown her picture on the internet with one part, just barely anything on her face, and then she had cleaned it off on the other. This is so much happening, and I'll tell you this is very important to realize. The way the RSS and the people at force trying to get rid of or ethnically cleanse India, the manner they work is by destroying history, by creating doubt in your own scriptures and your own literature, and by destroying women, by destroying any surbirta in the Qawm, and then destroying their land. So what's happening with the land? Redirecting waters. And countless pesticides. And then history, how do you destroy history? Well, 1984, we're in the Darbar Sahib, let's burn their library too. They burnt a book, a pothi called Bansavali Nama. It was written by Bhai Kesar Singh under the guidance of Mata Sundri Kaur. Where is it gone? Gone. After 1984. History, destroy their history, then they won't know. Because as long as there's a history there, they might end up looking. As we are. I'm just looking, everything's been taken out of pages from our history that I'm pointing out to you. And create doubt in their own writings, meaning their scriptures. How is it's happening now? People are questioning Sri Dasam Granth. People are pointing fingers at Bhagatamani. Destroy their women. How do you do it? Open up beauty parlors. The most beauty parlors, I heard this myself, and I'm repeating it to you. At Gurdwara Nabha Sahib, when I got to go to India, in the Katha Darbar, the Katha Vachik had mentioned some research that he had done. He said, from my knowledge, I have still recording of it. I recorded it at that time. He said that there are more beauty parlors here in Punjab than any other place. Do you see some trend? Do you see some understanding? Destroy their woman, Pandho Baj na koi. Because if there's no women and they don't have any say, they don't have any sikhya in them, then what sikhya are they going to give? Remember, the mother is the first teacher for a child. Right? So destroy the woman. You have to understand, on one side, if you're doing this, you're killing half of the Qawm. You're killing the Panth. You're killing our foundation, which is the mothers and the women. Out of the char khani, where all beings originate, one is the woman. One is the woman where it comes. The womb is the area where we come into the world. How great is that? That's mentioned in Baramaha. That's mentioned in Chaupe Sahib. That's literally 1/4 of the Khaniya, 25% of the Khaniya, Tusiya. So, and then, on top of it, when Bhagat Puran Singh, I'm sure you know who Bhagat Puran Singh is, who left only a jorda a bata and a dastar kashar kakari shadde. He had no other thing under his name. But he left his literature and a book that I don't even see published now. It says, Sir te dastar te gatre wali kirpan wali Sikh Bibi da pehrava. And he writes about Bibi Shashil Kaur, that in future classes I'm going to outline her whole life. Bibi Shashil Kaur. And even shows a picture. There's a picture of Bhagat Puran Singh sitting next to Bibi Shashil Kaur. And he talks about other terms and understanding the value of what a woman has in her case, in her dastar, in her bana. He had to write a huge novel, but truth, which is now barely available. I got this, you know how I got this? I got it from a group of people that had given it to me to burn. They didn't know the value of this. And I have a tendency to quickly look through pictures and stuff to see what I can take and put into a little treasury that I have that later on I'm going to make available to you. And this I will. This will be a separate class, but already you see I've gone over the time, but I'm going to finish. Now, Bibi Sundar Kaur. Now you might think I'm taking something out of a story created by Veer Singh, right? That he wrote up a novel. But until you read the appendices of Bibi Sundar Kaur's novel, and they did a wonderful job, and I'm not knocking the movie by Bismad Productions that they've made, Sundri. It's a wonderful movie. It's a wonderful movie, and it's captured a lot. According to their technology, they couldn't capture everything. And you can obviously see that certain people I had heard, just using another worldly example, that people are upset at the last Harry Potter movie because they had read the novel. And the novel, even with the Lord of the Rings, you read the novel and you can see, even in Lord of the Rings, with all the poetry that comes and he writes, nothing. You can barely see it in the movies. That literature and how nicely it's written, all gone. But that happens when you translate it to a visual. And that happened here too. And you see a cartoon. But what Bhai Veer Singh writes in the appendices, he said that I came across so many Singhnia's story. I have so many. And you know what I did? I threaded it into a life of Bibi Sundar Kaur. You over and over through the movie, you'll see Bibi Sundar Kaur is kidnapped again. She's gone away. Or she'll see another Singhni, right? Who would later on take Amrit, Bibi Dharm Kaur. And you'll see this. These are all episodes that really happened in that time. And he said, "Main gond dite." I took a thread and I made one life that she represents so many women. It literally is a story of a lot of women. And he called her Sundar Kaur because over Sundar Kaur there's a fight between women. Superficial beauty and inner beauty. Where she was Sundri and becoming Sundar Kaur. What fight there was involved. And what fight she had to prove herself and her inner beauty. And those attributes that I had mentioned at the beginning of the class. But I see, when they introduced Bibi Sundar Kaur, and then they rescued a woman of a Hindu term that later on took Amrit and became her best friend and companion, Bibi Dharm Kaur, and her husband, Bhai Pardeep Singh. Well, what happened when Bibi Sundar Kaur, and I hate to ruin the novel for you, those that have not read it, when she's passing away in the jungles. She was part of Baba Sham Singh's Jatha. They had witnessed a big genocide that happened. That also I'm going to share with you as a class. She, lying on, in the last few moments, asks that Guru Granth Sahib Ji's presence be here so I can listen to Kirtan and my breaths can fly off. But she leaves a speech. She turns to the Singhs and she'll turn to Bibi Dharm Kaur. And she won't use her name Bibi Dharm Kaur Ji. She's Pano. And she doesn't just say Bibi Dharm Kaur, or she was just sitting there alone, but she says Pano, sisters. And I take it as Bhai Veer Singh now, addressing all the sisters, all the Singhniya in this book. And listen to what Bibi Sundar Kaur tells the Singhniya. Hey Pano, tusi bhi jad tak shuddh Singhniya ho, until you are pure Singhniya, जिथे तक तुसी रहोगे जद तक पंथा तकड़ा है. If you are Shuddh Singhniya, then this panth is strong. And Baba Jarnail Singh, I remember in a Dharm Yudh Morcha, he had told the women to stand up too. When there's Singhs, there's a half an army. The other half of the army sits with the Bibiyan. Right? He told them because he knew from history what happens. The women get disgraced. The women get pushed around. Their husbands get killed. He saw this beforehand. And he was pushing this. So, hey Pano, tusi bhi jad tak Shuddh Singhniya ho, tad tak panth takda hai. Jad tusi kuj ਹੋਰ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਜਦ ਭਗਤ ਫਰੀਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਲੋਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਿਨ ਮਨ ਹੋਰ ਮੁਖ ਹੋਰ ਸੇ ਕਾਂਡੇ ਕੱਚੇ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੁਖ ਹੋਰ ਬਣਾ ਲਿਆ literally if you make your face something else that doesn't reflect Sikhi or literally if you have your face towards some other person and you're not following according to the knowledge that Guru Maharaj has blessed us with ਹੋਰ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਤਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗਤੀ ਮਾੜੀ ਹੋਗੀ you're going to have a bad outcome ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੰਤਾਨ ਵੀ ਗਿੱਦੜ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗੀ that your santan the children you produce will become cowards in this world ਦਰਕਾਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਆਵੇਗਾ ਔਰ ਸਤਕਾਰ ਉੱਡ ਜਾਏਗਾ disrespect you're going to be blamed but if you strive and you keep then you're going to get all the vidai too. It doesn't say Tanjane di Pita, it says Tanjane di Mao. Right? It says bless his women and at the same time they're going to disrespect you and honor is going to float away. And she says, Maya de chamtkara thode dina de han sada rehan apne atma di bhalai wal vadere khayal rakhna. That this Maya's chamtkar, this life you see, once it's lifted, it's going to feel like, oh, that was my life. But then there are so many lives. And it'll just seem like this one little dream once this parda or this curtain of this life is lifted. So it's on us to understand that self-knowledge was another attribute that I mentioned. Self-knowledge that Atma is everlasting. And a beautiful ending that came at the end of Sundri, that you see the Panj Pyare taking Mata Sundar Kaur. So, a poem that Gyani Gyan Singh that captured a Mata Sahib Kaur. Here's a question. If Mata Sahib Kaur was the very form of that Shakti that we call a Vakal Purakh, why didn't she take part in any of the wars? Any answers? Here's a reason. When Mata Sahib Kaur was there, that's why Maharaji put the Khalsa in Mata Sahib Kaur's lap. When they would go to war, what did they used to do in India? Tradition? Mataji Asis Baksho, Jang Fateh ho jaye. And here's Mata Sahib Kaur, Fateh hogi todi. She would give blessings of Fateh. And they would win. They would go on countlessly, not giving up to the enemy, not running away, not being converted. In their fight, they were victorious. And whose blessing was it? It was Mata Sahib Kaur, Mata Sahib Kaur's. And Mata Sahib Kaur's one chithi to a Raja of Anta, a place called Anta, she shows you who she really is. Likhya Sahib Kaur ne Anta Rao Tani. Tani directed towards the king of Anta. Sahib Kaur, Mata Sahib Kaur wrote this. Main Nagan, Danga Jis, I'm a cobra. Who I bite, nahi mangda pani. They don't ask for water. They'll lie dead on the ground. Main Chandi, Gobind Singh di, Vairi Dal Khani. I am Chandi of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. I am the Shakti of Akal Purakh. Vairi Dal Khani, they all eat and destroy your army. Pa, meaning destroy your army. Remember, if it would be Mata Sahib Kaur, she wouldn't need an army around her. That's why she never fought. She gave blessings. Singhs went out in armies. But remember the events of Satyug? It was only Durga. Because it's Maharaji's Shakti. Maharaji's Shakti doesn't need somebody else beside them. It's Maharaji's Shakti. So in that manner, it would have been just Mata Sahib Kaur. Main kar kar sutta dakre sab teri tani. So I go and I'll separate and throw pieces your army. मैं chung chung dukke buriyan de chadi jawani, that I've drank the milk of a woman devoted to Sikhi. मैं लड़ लड़ नाल बहादरां दे होए सियानी, that ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਵਾਨੀ ਚੜੀ ਹੈ, and then I've fought over and over again with countless courageous warriors, and this is how I've matured. But yet, in her ityas, you think that Mata Sahib Kaur now, she's telling a false or telling a lie? That she told a lie. She never fought in any of the wars. She's talking about past ages. Past ages. मैं शीहणी, this is another word for singani. मैं शीहणी पंज दरियायां दी, मेरी कली ना जानी. I am a lioness from Punjab. You don't understand my power. You don't understand my power. And that's truly what it is. It's a power that's been forgotten. It's a bhakti. Bhakti, power emanates from bhakti. Do you think anybody can pick up those guns that Mata Sahib Kaur did? It was all bhakti that's translated into shakti. And she had a number of them. Mata Sahib Kaur would be reminded when Guru Gobind Singh Ji in 1708 says, now you have to go. Go back to Delhi. Go back to the Mahal in Delhi. And Mata Sahib Kaur at that time was saying that, Guru Maharaj Ji, how will I eat? I don't eat until you eat. I'm not leaving your side. Guru Maharaj Ji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji handed her shastras of Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji. Because in pure form, in one element, God's Shakti is Sarablo. And 5 elements becomes Durga or Mata Sahib Kaur. Right? So he reminded her. And through the Shastras, in the morning when she would do Prakash of him in Delhi, who did she see? She saw Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Because she's not separate from Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Akal Purkh and his Shakti are not separate. They're always together. That's what Guru Gobind Singh Ji was reminding her. But he gave the Shastras of Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji that are still Khalsa Ji, kept in the Panth. That you can find at Mata Sahib Kaur's Gurdwara in Delhi. Around it is Mata Sahib Kaur, Mata Sundar Kaur's schools around that area. So, I asked for forgiveness. I've gone over time. But what happened is that with all this, and to understand a history, and to understand a change that needs to be developed, although I've cut out, believe me, I've cut out a story of Bibi Matab Kaur, Mata Ganga Ji, when Jahangir came. There's tons that have been edited out. But what's been formatted here, I thought were essentials. And I ask you, whoever sits here, whether male or female, remember there's countless, whether it's a female, you're surrounded by men too as your father, or that will be your child. And for the men, you're not separate from women either. We're all intermingled together. And for us to see ourselves as equal and working together as brothers and sisters in the Panth, that's how it needs to work. And if one is having a difficult time with something, open up and the other should have a reaching hand to help the other person up. It has to be that. And we all work towards each other. Remember, we have a long ways to go. Everything now, whether now people not appreciating Sikhi, and now you can see countless people, and the manner they dress, the manner they present themselves, you can see it all around. And it's difficult, I know, for certain of both of the genders, as you keep setting your eyes on them, whether it's playing an influence on you, or whether it's producing lust on the other side. But remember, Khalsa Ji, you still have this. This is yours. This is yours. And this is what I told the Singhani. I'll give this to you as a PowerPoint. I'll make it available to give to you. And I am. And what it is, this is yours. This is your ityas. This is your ityas. This is your panth. You have every right to be proud of it. Maharaji says, don't be proud in yourself, but be proud of this. This is your ityas. You have the same amrit running through your veins, or the same opportunity to take the same amrit. So I ask you, this is a day that you should celebrate in order to understand that I found out what it is. That even though some stories are familiar, but a lot of it now makes sense, hopefully. And if it doesn't make sense, it's my fault, definitely. And I probably have done countless injustices. And that's why I ask for forgiveness before the Sangat and Guru Sahib Ji and Mangal Rahi. Malar Pool Shamo Siri Nath Ramapat हे करुणा निध दास तुहारो अवगुण कोट परे अपराध अवज्ञा दोख न नैक विचारो जो हम पूत कपूत सभी विद अवगुण चूक न दास चितारो बाएंगे की लाज करो मुझ हे भगवंत दया कर तारो मलार महला पंजवा हे गोबिंद हे गोपाल हे दयाल लाल रहाओ प्राणनाथ दीन दर्द निवार हे समर्थ अगम पूर्ण मोहे मया तार अंधकूप महाप्यान नानक पार उतार पौड़ी हे अच्युत है पार ब्रह्म अविनाशी अगनास हे पूर्ण है सर्व में हे संगी हे निरंकार हे गोविंद हे गुण निदान हे अपरंग पर हर हरे हे संत के सदा संग हे ठाकुर हो दास रो नानक दीजे नामदान श्लोक आए प्रभ शरणागति एक अखर हर मन बस्त वाहे गुरु नाम जहाज है जो सरदा कर सेव दे जो सरदा कर सेव दे. So before we start Kirtan, remember one thing. For an aurat, for a woman, when she gives birth to a child, they say there's three births of a woman, right? For the Khalsa Panth, there's four. One is when you're born into the world. One is when you take Amrit. One is marriage. And one when you give birth to a child. When you give birth to a child, that for a woman becomes a strength, a point of strength. She uses that as a point of strength in life to move forward. That I can do this. I gave birth to this many children. You'll hear this saying. So in that manner, for those pana, wherever this voice reaches, and if it's going to be translated from you to another person, I say this: the moment that you defeat this little thing, this big thing actually for some women in their head, once it's overcome, it will only become a source of strength. It will be a source of strength that you'll provide to others. So that I leave in passing. So, piche bolna ji and agge aajo, jinna ne kirtan karna. Gurna